14th mind, i.e. Dharmajnana, he develops two knowledges, present and future. 9. In the 16th mind, i.e. Ksayajnana, he develops two present knowledges, margajnana, knowledge of the path of the cessation of suffering, anutpadajnana, and develops six future knowledges, dharmajnana, anvayajnana, dukkhajnana, samvrtijnana, nirodhajnana, knowledge of the cessation of suffering, and margajnana. If he is detached, he develops seven knowledges by adding paracittajnana, knowledge of another's mind, to the preceding six. B. In the bhavanamarga. 10. The srotaapanna who wishes to becomes detached from the fetters of kamadhatu develops seven knowledges, excluding paracittajnana, ksayajnana, knowledge of the cessation of the impurrities, and anutpadajnana, in the 17th mind. 11. In the ninth deliverance, when the saint becomes anagamin by destruction of the ninth category of passions of kamadhatu, he develops four knowledges, excluding ksayajnana, knowledge of the cessation of the impurities, anutpadajnana. When, by cessation of the fifth category of passions of kamadhatu, the person inspired by faith becomes informed by possession of the view, he develops six knowledges in the twofold path, excluding paracittajnana, samvrtijnana, ksayajnana, knowledge of the cessation of the impurities, and anutpadajnana. 12. When the saint is detached from the passions belonging to seven stages, namely, the four jhanas of rupadhatu, and the first three samapattis of arupyadhatu, the following should be distinguished. A. In the uninterrupted path, he develops seven knowledges, excluding paracittajnana, ksayajnana, knowledge of the cessation of the impurities, and anutpadajnana. B. In the paths of deliverance, he develops eight knowledges, excluding ksayajnana, knowledge of the cessation of the impurities, and anutpadajnana. 13. When the saint is detached from the passions of the summit of existence, the following should be distinguished. A. In the nine uninterrupted paths, in the first mind of the one who has nothing further to practice, a mind coinciding with the ninth and last deliverance of bhavanamarga. A. The arhat who is unconditionally liberated develops the 10 knowledges and all the impure and pure roots of good. B. The arhat who is conditionally liberated develops 9 knowledges, excluding samvrtijnana, ksayajnana, and anutpadajnana. C. In the bhavanamarga. 14. In the first mind of the one who has nothing further to practice, a mind coinciding with the ninth and last deliverance, vimukti, of bhavanamarga. A. The arhat who is unconditionally liberated, asamaya develops the 10 knowledges and all the impure and pure roots of good. B. The arhat who is conditionally liberated develops 9 knowledges, excluding anutpadajnana, and all the impure and pure roots of good. All of these distinctions are fully explained in the Abhidhamma. C. The 11 knowledges according to the Mahayana. 1. Knowledge conforming to reality. The knowledge conforming to reality has a special characteristic. It will be fully explained in the following chapters of the Prajnaparamita. 2. The 11 knowledges. Some say. 1. The knowledge of things cognizes the 5 aggregates of attachment as impermanent, painful, empty and without self. It knows that dharmas are all the result of a complex of causes and conditions, in the sense that actions have ignorance as condition and so on up to old age, and death have birth as condition. Thus the Buddha said to the Brahmakaran Shuchemo, first it is necessary to use the knowledge of the causality of things in order to analyze dharmas, then to use the knowledge concerning nirvana. 2. Subsequent knowledge. Knowing that the present 5 aggregates of attachment are impermanent, painful, empty and non-self, One deduces that, in the past and the future and in the form realm and the formless realm as well, the five aggregates of attachment are likewise impermanent, suffering, empty and without self. Thus, if we notice that presently fire warms and burns, we know by induction that fires past and future or fires in other places likewise warm and burn. 3. The knowledge of another's mind cognizes the mind and mental events of other beings. Question. If it cognizes the mind and mental events of others, why is it called simply the knowledge of the mind of another and not the knowledge of the mind and mental events of others? Answer. The mind being sovereign, it is sufficient to call it the knowledge of another's mind. By saying mind, we know that the mental events are understood as well. 4. Conventional knowledge is a purely knowledge of designation. The saint knows that, in regard to reality, a worldly people know it only verbally. This is why this knowledge is called knowledge of designation. In the same way, those for whom a house is just a word list of boards, posts, pillars and walls only understand these materials and do not understand the real meaning of a house. That is conventional knowledge. 5. The knowledge of suffering brings into play a knowledge about suffering in order to reprimand the five aggregates of attachment. Question. The five aggregates of attachment are both impermanent, painful, empty, and non-self. Why speak only of the knowledge of suffering and not speak of a knowledge of impermanence, emptiness and non-self? Answer. We speak of the knowledge of suffering in regard to the truth of suffering, the knowledge of the origin in regard to the truth of the origin, the knowledge of cessation in regard to the truth of cessation, and the knowledge of the path in regard to the truth of the path. Question. But the five aggregates of attachment have all kinds of evils. Why proclaim only one truth on suffering and not proclaim truths on impermanence, emptiness and non-self as well? Answer. If truths on impermanence, emptiness and non-self were proclaimed, this would not offend the meaning of the Buddhist doctrine. But as beings above all, lovers of happiness and enemies of suffering, the Buddha's lament that everything in the world is suffering was intended to lead beings to become detached from it. On the other hand, being faced with impermanence, emptiness and non-self, beings are not very frightened. This is why the Buddha did not speak of them as distinct truths. Furthermore, in the Dharma proclaimed by the Buddha, the five aggregates of attachment carry different names but all meaning suffering. This is why the Buddha spoke only of the knowledge of suffering. This dukkhaijnana, knowledge of suffering, is sometimes impure, sometimes pure. A. It is impure in the preparatory path, when it is in heat, summits, patience and supreme worldly dharmas. B. It is pure when the ascetic penetrates into the path of seeing the truths. Why is that? From there on up to the supreme worldly dharmas, the yogin considers suffering in four ways. 6 to 8. It is the same for the knowledge of the origin, the knowledge of cessation and the knowledge of the path. Furthermore, the knowledge of suffering cognizes that suffering nature